in the first half of this entire game. First time that's happened in 16 years. This is midway through the third, knocks down a three, finally gets on the board. And then, Vin, we got Lakers down by 8. We got LeBron turning defense into offense, and he's on his way.
He shouldn't be able to glide and do that at 41.
Lakers cut it to 6. We got ourselves a game. Final minute of the third. Luka Doncic, Monica, working, spinning, and knocking it down.
Come on, so poised when it matters most.
He had 32 in the game last night. Fourth quarter. This one is tied at 105. Harris, fadeaway over Doncic, and it's good. Pistons by 2. Final 30 seconds. Lakers inbounding, down 1. Austin Reeves.
This was a big bucket.
Lakers take a 1-point lead. After a timeout, Pistons inbounding, down 1. Where are we going?
Come on.
Danis Jenkins.
DJ is what they call him, Greeny.
That's a tough shot.
Play that music, DJ.
He had a career-high 30. Pistons by 1. Ensuing Laker possession, 19 seconds left. Where are we going for a bucket? Luka. They're all over him. Tough shot. Doesn't go. You don't like the look? We'll talk about it with Shump in a minute. Lakers have to foul. 2 free throws are good, so Lakers down 3. 9 seconds left.
High hand.
Can we get any better than this?
Come on, Jalen Durant.
That's you want.
Saddle that left hand. Sit on that shoulder.
High hand.
That's all they're able to get up, and that's how the win streak comes to an end. The Laker 9-game streak comes to a close, playing without Cade Cunningham. The Pistons get the win. Now back to LeBron. He's played 1,613 games in the NBA. This was just the third time that he had 0 points in the first half. In fact, it was the latest into a game he ever scored at first points in his career. And he was asked about his role when it was over.
Feel comfortable. I think this was the third time in your career only where you had a scoreless first half, but it still felt like you were in the game. That makes sense.
It's the role that I'm playing for the ball club. In order for us to win ball games, it's the role that I'm playing, and it's just how the game has moved.
But just sort of where this group is at right now as you guys head into these last 10 games? That we're a good basketball team. I believe that we're a good basketball team. I thought we could be a good basketball team the entire season. We saw flashes of it. We saw short stretches of it, but we're a good basketball team, and I think we have to continue to play together and all that stuff. It is remarkable to me, and this is, again, not an excuse, but our winning streak has also coincided with us being healthy. And, you go watch, I rewatched the first Detroit game, and it's like, oh, this guy's out, this guy's out, this guy's out. Tonight, Smart and Rui are out. Not having Smart tonight killed us, That's important for us, that we can get healthy and we can play our rotation. And post Luke trade, I think when all 9 guys have played, we've been a good basketball team. And I think Vando did a great job tonight. When he had his minutes, he was ready to play. But the way our team works, you need Smart for his ball handling, you need Smart for his defense, you need Rui for his shooting. Like, those pieces are important to complement everybody. And we need to finish the season strong, but we also need to finish the season healthy.
Now, you guys are the experts in basketball, but I am an expert in passive-aggressive behavior.
Greeny!
And I'm quite sure that's at least a little bit of what I heard there. Monica, you don't buy it?
Now, what is passive-aggressive, but what also is true? And I think it's true. Like, this is the role. This is no longer the vintage LeBron James-led teams. And most importantly, in terms of this renaissance, if you will, for the Lakers, it's been about the way they've been able to shift and figure out different roles defensively.
Yes, but not to score until we've played over 30 minutes in the game last night?
That's not why they lost the game.
I'm not suggesting it's why they lost the game. I'm suggesting LeBron wasn't thrilled with it. What do you think of that?
It's all good as long as it works. And when it don't work, I'm going to tell you why it doesn't work. Iman, I got a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Who won the game last night?
Detroit.
Who were they without?
Huh?
Who were they without last night?
Cade Cunningham.
And who else?
They were also without Isaiah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
They didn't have a guy. They didn't have their guy. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
What are we saying?
I'm saying we are now realizing, we were just talking about it in the back. We have a LeBron James that has had such a great career that the Detroit Pistons can go out here and end their streak, and we're going to highlight the Lakers.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Even highlight his quote, when his quote is nothing but the truth. I'm no longer the first option. You shouldn't be expecting me to have all these scoring tandems and all this stuff going on. Right now, I'm just filling the holes, filling the gaps. I'm making sure the train stays on the track.
You were his teammate at a time when obviously he was in a completely different stage.
It was different.
Of his career, understandable.
Hey, you can't do that back then now, Bron. We needed you back then. Ain't got time for that back seat back then. You know what I'm saying?
What I think Vince is saying is that LeBron is 100% good with playing whatever role you want so long as we're winning. But when we don't win, then maybe we're not quite as happy.
Well, they're not invincible if LeBron plays this role. You know what I'm saying? We still know that they need help on the interior. We still know that they're going to need help defensively down the stretch. I know they're getting it done on this streak with team defense, but sometimes you need an individual to be able to guard at the end of games like we saw Detroit doing at the end there.
They've still won 9 out of 10. They're obviously still red hot. Have what they've done over the last 3 or so weeks changed your perspective of what their ceiling is when we get to April and May?
Well, I thought their ceiling before Green was a first-round team, depending on the matchup. Now I think, especially if they play Houston in the first round, because they're so good in the clutch last night notwithstanding, they can get to the second round. But I think that's kind of where it is. Because I think there is a gap between Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and everybody else, and they are the head of everybody else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, to me, as we look at that 3, last week it was the Nuggets, and I didn't think they were going to get out of that series. This week it's Houston, and I would agree with Vince that they've got a better chance. And we know everything gets tighter and magnified when you get to the postseason, and I think their depth and some of the guys that they rely on defensively that are not good options offensively will be.
You got to see last night why teams have problems believing in the Lakers. Danis Jenkins was a guy who's a two-way player.
Hey, put some respect on my guy.
Who just got a contract, Greeny, a month and a half ago, giving them 30, giving them clutch buckets, picking on Austin Reeves, picking on Luka Doncic. Imagine those guys in a playoff situation, picking on the Lakers.
Yes, and if those guys aren't Jenkins, but they are, I don't know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, good luck, right? Then it gets a whole lot more complicated. Okay, so
What?
No, I was just going to say, Tiger showing up, it's always going to build that anticipation, that excitement. People want to see what he looks like, and
Master.
And they want to go. I was breadcrumbing it. I didn't want to say it,
but you said
it there.
You said
I was breadcrumbing
it. We had some great moments in the NBA last night. Obviously, the number one guy that everyone talks about around the league, Danis Jenkins.
Man,
he's a point guard for the Detroit Pistons that I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Most people are learning about his name today, Danis Jenkins. He was in there because of the fact that Cade Cunningham was out and is out with the collapsed lung, and obviously we hope he's okay as soon as possible for the Detroit Pistons, the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But your Los Angeles Lakers, CC, have been awesome. They had won 9 in a row, but they lost last night to the aforementioned Pistons, 113-110, thanks to Danis Jenkins, who had 30 points in this. What? Who? Is this a tough pill to swallow, or can you deal with it because of the fact that, hey, 9 in a row?
Listen, when he's making shots like the corner 3 he hit at the end of the first quarter, all you can do is tip your cap to him. You can't even be mad at it. You can't. But, I mean, the thing that impressed me about what Detroit did was how they were able to find ways to hunt matchups that they wanted. They isolated Luka Doncic with Tobias Harris in the mid and low post at times in the fourth quarter, and they found ways to finish quarters in half strong. I mean, obviously, the shot at the buzzer at the end of the first quarter, they scored 10 points in the final 3 minutes of the second quarter. And then, of course, we know what they did in clutch time against the Lakers as well. So I think that's the part where you got to really be impressed with what the Detroit Pistons were able to do. We know the Lakers, from a defensive standpoint, are a bit challenged when they have their best 3 offensive players on the court at the same time. And it proved itself last night, the Detroit Pistons being able to take advantage of those lineups.
Yeah, I wouldn't panic over a loss like this. They had an incredible streak, and it's hard. The fact that it was as close as it was surprising to me with the way that LeBron played in the first half. Scoreless in the first half. He finished with 12 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. But the fact that they were even able to come back, tie it all at 91 with 9 minutes to play, that was impressive to me that the Lakers showed that fight last night.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When Luka has a bad shooting night like he had last night, LeBron goes scoreless, it basically a ghost in the first quarter, you're going to struggle. And that's exactly what ended up happening yesterday.
The thing about this guy, Jenkins, he's a second-year player out of St. John's. The weirdest thing is, like, so when you have your star player out, guys are going to want to step up. Late in the game, when they needed, in essence, a game winner, he's like, all right, got it. Like, there was no hesitation. He hits this little baseline jumper. I was watching the end of this, and anything to get me away from my team getting pummeled by the Spurs last night in Miami. But he just had this confidence that you're like, where is this coming from for a guy that's not necessarily a big-time guy for them, but this Danis Jenkins, I can't get over it. And I got to tell you one other thing. I thought his name was Danis until last night. It's now Danis. It was always Danis, and I got it wrong.
Oh, people going to get it right now.
My
After
God.
you play like that, you ball like that,
Against the
get your
Lakers?
name right now.
The Lakers are on a 9-game winning streak, and this is how it ends?
Danis.
You would think that's the word of the day, but that's his name. He was great last night for them, and you give the Pistons a lot of credit. I know the storyline is about the Lakers because of how well they've been playing recently, and they deserve all the praise. Redick deserves tons of praise. Luka deserves tons of praise for offense. LeBron, to me, deserves the most praise because of the way he's doing everything on the court. But give the Pistons credit. Number 1 seed in the East without Cade. JB Bickerstaff is great as a head coach. He was great. You know, he did a really good job in Cleveland. He comes to Detroit. Look what he's done here. And they go to this guy late and not their all-star Jalen Duren?
I was going to ask you that question this morning. Have we been overstated in terms of framing the Detroit Pistons as a one-man team with the usage rate for Cade Cunningham and how great he's been? We've always talked about how reliant or dependent they have been on Cade and what happens in the postseason if you take him away with some of the different looks that you're going to get defensively, more complex schemes, because it's game plan specific and you get to see them night after night in the course of a 7-game series. I'm just curious, have we gone too far in terms of framing the Detroit Pistons as a one-man band? Is this performance reflective of the depth and the toughness, but also the talent of this Pistons team?
Well, they're 8-2 without Cade this season. 3-0 since he was diagnosed with that collapsed lung. So they've been finding ways. Maybe they are more balanced than we have given them credit for.
If you're willing to fight and you're willing to play defense, you can be competitive against anyone.
In the regular season.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously,
But
I'm not going to
I know. I'm trying to spit it forward to the postseason, because that's what the conversation is with both of these teams. I mean, yeah, we care about what happens the rest of the way as far as seeding is concerned, but both of these teams are going to be in it. Both of these teams are in the conversation for being in their conference finals. So I'm asking the question.
I think we have been too dismissive of them, and I think it's so many people, rightfully so, want to compliment the Celtics because it's an amazing story this year. I don't think we give enough credit to the Pistons. They're better than the Celtics. I also don't think we give enough credit to the Knicks, who I still think are alive. And, you know, you look at Jalen Duren, he was an all-star. Isaiah Stewart is somebody that I'll take on my team any day of the week because he'll fight you.
Yeah.
And then, if you watch this, go online, watch the replay of this game, in essence, this game-winning possession by this guy, Danis Jenkins. No hesitation. Has the ball at the top of the key. Like, sometimes you need those dudes off the bench that when all things, remember the Warriors, Leandro Barbosa in the early years. Like, hey, all things have gone to hell. Can you just figure something out here? We're not going to run a play. Just do something. Sometimes you need to do something, guys. Danis Jenkins for them in the game of the year for them was a do something guy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that he was able to do was create. And that was the question about what happens if Cade gets locked down. Remember when the Pistons played the Spurs and Steph Castle had Cade in a straitjacket, there were no answers in terms of who could create offense, who could facilitate the greatness of others, get the ball in guys' spots where they know what to do with it. We haven't really seen that from the Pistons until last night with Danis Jenkins. And so I'm curious to know, was that a product of guys just not having the opportunity? Or did they not have the guys? And I think we got the answer to that in last night's win for Detroit.
Well, remember something. They drafted a guy in Jaden Ivey, 5th overall. He's now on the Bulls to be that guy that you just said.
Yes.
So they thought they had a guy to do that, right? But he did not work out for them. They knew they needed that kind of guy. I just think we have gone too far in dismissing these teams in the East because we just are in awe of the Celtics story.
Yes.
And I think that Detroit is still... Boston is closer to 5 than they are 1. Think about it. Numerically, they are closer to the 5th seed than they are the 1 seed. So when you're asking the question, are we too soon to write off the others, so to speak, in Detroit? The answer is yes. Because they still have held off Boston once Tatum has come back.
Isn't that a reflection, too, of coaching in Detroit?
With JB?
Yes.
Yeah,
JB's a great coach.
He's so listen, he's been around here. We've gotten to know him a tiny bit. He's so likable. He's got the background, obviously. His dad was coach forever. And he's now had multiple stops where he's been successful. And it's moments like this where you beat a team like the Lakers with a 9-game winning streak without your best player. That's a reflection of coaching. There's no question about that. All right, well, Cade was an MVP candidate. SGA is probably the leader in the clubhouse. Luka finally lost last night, but there's one guy who thinks none of those guys should win the MVP, and he should instead. We'll get to that next. We're on Sportsmanlike.
9 straight wins, gone, 3 points. A role player nobody was watching scored 30 career-high points for Detroit and closed the game with 6 points in the final 34 seconds. Luka Doncic missed a potential game winner with 12 seconds left and then launched a 3 at the buzzer that never had a chance. The streak is over. But here is what nobody is talking about this morning. Inside that same loss, Doncic made history that places him ahead of Michael Jordan on one of the most prestigious career milestones in the sport. He was named Player of the Week for the 2nd consecutive time by the NBA on the same day the streak ended. And a respected analyst just ranked him 5th in his MVP ladder, behind a player who is currently sitting at home with a collapsed lung. The Los Angeles Lakers are 46-26. They have 9 games left, and everything that was built over the last 3 weeks is now being tested in the most honest way possible. Hit that like button right now if you are riding with this team all the way to the playoffs, because tonight we are breaking down everything. So let us begin talking firstly about what happened inside Little Caesars Arena on Monday night, because the way this game unfolded deserves to be told in full before any conclusions are drawn. Because a loss is a loss, but not every loss tells the same story. And this particular defeat tells a story that every Lakers fan needs to hear completely rather than react to emotionally. The Lakers arrived in Detroit without Marcus Smart and without Rui Hachimura, both of whom were ruled out before tip-off. Smart with a right ankle injury and Hachimura with a right calf issue. Those 2 absences matter enormously in the specific context of this game, because Smart has been the single most important figure in the transformation of this team's defensive identity over the last month. And Hachimura has been the reliable 4th scoring option whose floor spacing and efficiency in secondary possessions has given the team its offensive balance. Without them, the Lakers walked into the arena of the Eastern Conference's first seed with a shortened rotation and a depleted defensive backbone, and the first half showed exactly what that combination produces in the most unforgiving environment on the Eastern Conference schedule. Detroit came out with the aggression and the confidence of a team that has been winning without its best player for multiple games and knows exactly what its system can produce when executed correctly. They built a 16-point lead that reflected the defensive gap created by Smart's absence, a second quarter in which they scored 42 points, running through the Lakers' rotations with a pace and precision that the defense simply could not contain without its veteran anchor. By halftime, the score was 65-52, and the narrative seemed to be writing itself toward a comfortable Detroit victory. And then the Lakers remembered who they are. Since the beginning of March, this team has built an identity around bending without breaking, around absorbing adversity, staying connected, and finding their way back into games that should have escaped them. They came back from 13 points against Denver to win in overtime. They came back from 15 points against Miami to win by 8. They came back from 16 points against Detroit and cut the deficit all the way to 0. Tying the game at 91 all with 9 minutes remaining, and then trading baskets with a desperate Pistons team until the final seconds of a game that genuinely came down to a single possession. Doncic scored 17 points in the first quarter alone, before the Pistons adjusted and limited him to just 6 of 19 from the field over the final 3 periods. Austin Reaves delivered 24 points and 5 assists in the kind of complete performance that demonstrates why this team functions differently when all 3 of its stars are healthy and operational. LeBron James went scoreless in the first half, a fact that would have generated enormous panic earlier in the season, and then finished with 12 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds in a performance that was 1 rebound away from yet another triple-double, and that reflected the complete buyout of personal statistics in favor of collective function. DeAndre Ayton put the Lakers ahead, 108-107, with 2 free throws, with 39.9 seconds remaining. Jake LaRavia committed a foul that sent Detroit's Danis Jenkins to the line for 2. Jenkins made both. The lead changed hands again. Reaves and Jenkins traded baskets. And then, with 12 seconds left and the Lakers trailing by 1, the ball was exactly where it needed to be. In Luka Doncic's hands, 14 feet from the basket, left wing, the kind of pull-up jumper he makes in his sleep and has been converting at an elite rate throughout this entire winning streak. He missed it. Detroit rebounded. Jenkins made 2 more free throws. Doncic had 1 more possession and launched a 3 at the buzzer that never drew iron. Final score, 113-110. The streak ended not in a blowout, not in a game the Lakers had no business winning, but in a 3-point road loss to the first seed in the Eastern Conference, while playing their 5th road game in 7 days without 2 key rotation players. JJ Redick said it clearly and without hesitation after the game, "We gave ourselves a chance, and that is all you can ask for." I believe that sentence from Redick is not resignation. It is the honest and accurate assessment of what this team accomplished on a night when the circumstances were stacked against them, and the fact that they were in a position to win with 12 seconds remaining, after trailing by 16 points, tells you far more about who these Lakers are than the final score does. Now, let us talk about Danis Jenkins. Because the man who broke this streak deserves his full moment. Because what he did on Monday night in Detroit was the kind of individual performance that defines career trajectories and burns itself into the memory of a city. Jenkins entered this game as a role player, a name that most Lakers fans would have had trouble placing with certainty before tip-off. A player whose significance to this Pistons roster existed largely in the context of filling gaps created by Cade Cunningham's collapsed lung injury and providing energy and competitiveness without being asked to carry the game. And then he scored a career-high 30 points. Not 30 points in a comfortable win where the game was decided early and the box score was an afterthought. 30 points in a game that came down to the final possession against the team with the best winning percentage in clutch situations in the entire NBA. Finishing with 6 points in the last 34 seconds when the pressure was at its absolute maximum, and every single decision carried the weight of the streak and the momentum and the significance of what the Lakers had been building for 3 weeks. 4 free throws in the final stretch without a tremor of hesitation or doubt. Jenkins executed those moments with the composure of a veteran closer, rather than a role player making the most important plays of his professional career. When asked about it afterward, Redick acknowledged directly that Detroit is the top team in the Eastern Conference for a reason, even without their best player available. The Pistons have now won 26 clutch games this season, the most in the entire NBA, and their system, their depth, and the culture that head coach Monty Williams has installed in that building produce performances like Jenkins had on Monday, even when the roster is missing pieces that would otherwise define the team. Thinking about it carefully, what Jenkins did is not a reason for Lakers fans to be alarmed. it is a reminder that the team sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference has the specific qualities and the specific character that make them dangerous in the playoffs regardless of who is on the court, and that the road to any championship in 2026 runs through genuinely difficult places. What makes the loss even more layered and more complex to process as a fan is the fact that inside the same game where the winning streak ended, inside the same 39 minutes that produced the missed game winner and the buzzer beater that never had a chance, Luka Doncic made history that places him in the company of the greatest players who have ever played this game. On his fifth made field goal of the evening, Doncic reached 5,000 career field goals. And he did it at 27 years and 23 days old, becoming the seventh fastest player in NBA history to reach that milestone. The list of players ahead of him on that timeline: Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, Rick Barry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Walt Bellamy, and Jerry West. Immediately behind him, Michael Jordan, who reached the same mark at 27 years and 41 days old. 18 days faster than Michael Jordan to 5,000 career field goals. Doncic is 27 years old and is already ahead of Jordan on one of the most significant career accumulation milestones in the history of professional basketball, a player who many regard as the greatest of all time. And he accomplished that milestone on a Monday night in Detroit while finishing with 32 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in a losing effort. The history keeps coming regardless of the scoreboard, and the pace at which Doncic is accumulating both individual records and collective milestones at his age is one of the genuinely remarkable ongoing stories of this entire era of basketball. Thinking about it carefully, the 5,000 field goal milestone arriving faster than it came for Michael Jordan is not a talking point or a hot take. It is a data point that belongs in the permanent record of what Luka Doncic is and what he is becoming. And it arrived on the same night the winning streak ended, as if the basketball gods wanted to make sure nobody forgot that the individual story here transcends any single result. The same Monday that saw the streak end and the 5,000 field goal milestone reached also brought the official recognition from the NBA that the entire basketball world had already been giving Doncic privately his second consecutive Western Conference Player of the Week award, making him the league leader in that category, with 4 selections this season, surpassing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has 3. The award covered the week of March 16th through March 22nd, during which Doncic averaged 42.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, 6.3 assists, and 3.0 steals on 50% shooting from the field and 39% from three-point range in 38.5 minutes per contest, while leading the Lakers to a 4-0 road record. The week included 36 points against Houston on Monday, 40 points against Houston on Wednesday, 60 points against Miami on Thursday in the second night of a back-to-back after the team arrived at the hotel at 5 in the morning, and 33 points against Orlando on Saturday in a game decided by 1 shot with 2.6 seconds remaining. That is 4 road wins in 4 nights with those scoring lines, and the Player of the Week award was rescinded and then granted within the same 48 hours as the technical foul ruling, creating a remarkable symmetry of institutional recognition and institutional punishment, arriving almost simultaneously for the same player. The NBA took away a game and then gave him an award. Doncic played through all of it, kept scoring, kept winning, and now leads the league in Player of the Week selections for the 2nd consecutive season. I believe that the Player of the Week recognition, particularly the fact that it is the 4th time this season and the 2nd consecutive week, is the clearest institutional signal from the NBA itself that what Doncic has been doing during this run represents the highest individual standard in the sport, and that the voters who ultimately determine the MVP award are watching the same performances that generated this recognition and will have to account for them when the ballots are submitted. Now, let us address the elephant in the room, the thing that every Lakers fan needs to process honestly rather than defensively, because it reflects a genuine and legitimate debate about what this team actually is when it is not at full strength. The Lakers lost to a Detroit team missing Cade Cunningham. The final score was 3 points. The deficit at halftime was 13 points. And the specific reason the team was shorthanded and compromised on this particular road game, Smart's ankle and Hachimura's calf, points to something that JJ Redick acknowledged directly and without deflection in the post-game press conference. The winning streak happened because the team was healthy, not as an excuse, as a structural observation about a roster that does not have the depth to fully absorb multiple simultaneous absences from key rotation players without a meaningful drop in performance quality. Smart's presence changes this team's defensive identity in ways that statistics can partially measure but not fully capture: the communication, the positioning, the veteran authority on the back end that allows everyone else to play their roles with confidence. Hachimura's presence provides spacing and a reliable fourth offensive option that prevents defenses from loading up entirely on the 3 stars. Without both of them on the same night against the league's first seed at home, the deficit that built in the second quarter was not a failure of effort or intensity. It was the honest product of a matchup that the roster in its compromised state was not equipped to win consistently. Redick was asked for the message heading into the final 9 games of the regular season, and he was direct. This is a good basketball team, and the winning streak proved it. But finishing the season healthy and complete matters as much as finishing strong in terms of wins and losses, because the same players who drove this 3-week transformation are the ones who will need to be ready when the playoffs begin. Thinking about it carefully, JJ Redick saying that the winning streak coincided with health is not a coach making excuses. It is a coach identifying the single most important variable for what this team can be in April and May, and making sure the entire organization understands it with 9 games remaining. The transformation that produced the 9-game winning streak and the resilient performance in Detroit deserves its own full accounting, because the numbers behind it represent a genuine structural improvement rather than a hot shooting stretch that will evaporate when the schedule gets difficult. In mid-January, the Lakers were 24-15, but 14 of their losses had come by at least 10 points. They were the only top 6 team in the Western Conference with that many double-digit losses at that point in the season. Their offense was ranked 7th in the league, and their defense was ranked 21st. Since the 1st of March, they have gone 7-1 against teams with winning records, beating the New York Knicks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Denver Nuggets, the Houston Rockets twice, the Miami Heat, and the Orlando Magic. The offense has climbed to 4th best in the entire league this month. The defense has risen to 9th. They have gone from the team that got blown out regularly and could not beat good teams to a team that has beaten almost every good team it has faced for 3 straight weeks. The specific details of that transformation are not mysterious. It is Smart anchoring the defensive communication. It is Ayton engaged and functional in the paint. It is LeBron operating as the 3rd option rather than the primary creator. It is Redick trusting his rotation and staying committed to the system even when individual performances fluctuate. The loss in Detroit does not erase any of that. It confirms one of the things Draymond Green warned about weeks ago, that a team relying heavily on defensive schemes and role player contributions is vulnerable when those specific contributors are unavailable. and it underscores the importance of health in the final stretch of the regular season in a way that no amount of coaching or strategy can compensate for if the key pieces are not on the floor. Which brings us to the most uncomfortable but most necessary conversation that the end of the winning streak has reopened. The question of whether JJ Redick can avoid the specific trap that destroyed the Lakers in last year's playoffs. Zach Lowe said it on the Bill Simmons podcast with the kind of directness that cuts through optimism. The bench players around the three Lakers stars are a collection of guys who have lost coaches' trust in the playoffs multiple times. He made the point not as a dismissal of those players' abilities, but as a realistic assessment of what the historical record shows about how those specific players have performed when the stakes are highest and the coaching decisions are most consequential. Last season, in Game 4 of the first-round series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, Redick played 5 players the entire second half and lost, a moment that became the defining failure of his first season as a head coach, and that demonstrated a lack of trust in his own bench that ultimately cost the team the game and arguably the series. The supporting cast around the three stars is not perfect this year, but it is meaningfully better. Marcus Smart brings defensive excellence and veteran leadership that the team genuinely did not have last season. Luke Kennard is shooting 48.6% from 3 and proved in Orlando that he can make the biggest shot of the game in the biggest moment. DeAndre Ayton, at his best, is a functional and efficient center who scores on 67% of his field goal attempts. Jackson Hayes provides energy and athleticism in bursts. Jake LaRavia holds things together as a glue player in ways that do not always show up in box scores. None of them are perfect. All of them have real limitations that playoff opponents will identify and exploit with the preparation time that postseason basketball provides. The question is not whether those limitations exist, they do, but whether Redick will trust these players through their inevitable difficult moments in playoff games rather than running the three stars into the ground the way last season's approach demanded. I believe this year's Redick is a fundamentally different coach than last year's Redick. The evidence of this March, the player development visible in Ayton and Smart, the rotation management, the willingness to let role players take the biggest shots in the biggest moments. All of it points to a coach who has grown and learned. But believing it and seeing it, confirmed in a playoff series against an opponent prepared specifically to exploit every weakness this roster has, are two different things. And the final 9 regular season games are the last opportunity to build the habits and the trust that will determine which version of this team shows up in April. And then there is the MVP conversation, which the end of the winning streak has not simplified at all, and which received a provocative contribution this week from Yahoo Sports' Ben Rohrbach, who published his MVP ladder and placed Doncic 5th, not 2nd, not 3rd, 5th, behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and Cade Cunningham, who is currently sitting at home with a collapsed lung and who is expected to miss an extended period of time, including, potentially, the start of the playoffs. The specific reasoning Rohrbach offered was illuminating and honest about both the case for and against Doncic. The Lakers' defensive rating of 115.5 when Doncic is on the floor sits in the bottom 10 of the entire league in terms of defensive efficiency. And while Rohrbach credits the recent improvement in that number, he argues that a full season of defensive liability cannot be erased by 3 weeks of improved play. He also noted that the Lakers' offensive rating with Doncic on the floor is 119.1 points per 100 possessions, similar to the league's second-best offense, which is the strongest component of the MVP argument. Placing Doncic behind Cunningham, despite Cunningham's injury and extended absence, is a choice that will generate significant debate. And Rohrbakh's reasoning reflects the reality that some voters weigh the full body of work across the season rather than the most recent performances, however extraordinary those performances have been. The NBA today confirmed its own institutional recognition of that extraordinary run by naming Doncic Player of the Week for the second consecutive time, the fourth such award of his season, and the most by any player in the league, which creates a fascinating tension between individual weekly performance awards going overwhelmingly to Doncic and season-long MVP consideration, still treating him as a secondary or tertiary candidate. I believe the MVP race this season is genuinely and legitimately complicated in a way that reasonable people can disagree about, and that Rohrbakh's fifth-place ranking, while provocative and arguably unfair given Cunningham's current unavailability, reflects the structural reality that the Lakers' 10-game gap behind OKC in the standings and the full-season defensive numbers create a real and defensible argument against Doncic, regardless of what he has done in March. The most honest thing any Lakers fan can say about the MVP race right now is this: Doncic has made the argument impossible to ignore. The voters are still going to have to make a decision that goes beyond the last 3 weeks, and the final 9 games of the regular season are the last opportunity to add evidence to a case that already has more compelling data points than it has ever had before.